Good evening and welcome to the City of Pasco Council meeting. The council thanks you for being a part of our city government. At meetings, the City Council takes formal actions on items, holds public hearings, and conducts other business of the city. Following the Healthy Washington Roadmap to Recovery Phase 2 requirements, the City Council may conduct in-person meetings while continuing to provide remote access to the meetings unless the Washington state restrictions are lifted. Therefore, facial masks are required to be worn at all times while in the council chambers. If any individual is unable to comply with this order, then the meeting will be recessed until compliance is met. If compliance is not met and the individual refuses to leave the chambers, then the meeting will either reconvene only virtually or be adjourned. Agenda packets are available on the City of Pasco's website at www.pasco-wa.gov/agenda. Please note that the City Council meetings may be accessed through GoToWebinar. This meeting is also being televised live on Pasco TV channel 191, on Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and is streamed on the city's Facebook page, website, and YouTube channel. This and previous council meeting video is available on the city's website. And lastly, the public may submit their comments and or questions by contacting the city manager or city clerk or using the feedback form on the city's website. And with that, thank you once again for joining us tonight, and we'll move right along for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Present.
Maloney.
Present.
Milne.
Present.
Roach.
Present.
Serrano.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Barajas.
Present.
And Mayor Martinez.
Present. Thank you. Shall we rise for the flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. Next, we'll go to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by the roll call as one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If further discussion is desired by council members or the public, the item may be removed from the consent agenda to the regular agenda and considered separately. I'm going to need to take a pause. And we just went through the rules of having meetings in our chamber. And once again, I see some citizens come in without masks. Can I please ask you to respectfully put on some masks if you want to be in this meeting? Okay. So with that, I'm going to have to call a recess, and we can pursue, depending on what the outcome is, for the recess. So I will call a 15-minute recess at this time. Thank you. Meeting is back into normal meeting. However, We have to abide by the rules that are set before us to be able to have these public meetings where everybody has to wear masks. If anybody refuses, then again, as we read earlier, we'll have to adjourn this meeting and do it virtually from home. So because there's citizens that are adamant about their right to to have their speech and a voice be heard, there will be an opportunity to to speak virtually if they want to do it online. So with that, it is 7:05. I'm going to adjourn this meeting and we can reconvene at, I think it's safe to say about 8 o'clock or 7:30. How long does it take everybody to get home?
Anywhere from 20 minutes.
Okay, so let's,
Probably the safe spot,
7:30, we'll reconvene at 7:30. All right, this meeting is adjourned for now. Thank you. Okay. It is 7:30. I'm going to call this meeting back to order. And I'd like to just ensure that all the rest of the council is on the line. Could we do a quick little roll call again, please?
Councilmember Alvarado,
Present.
Councilmember Maloney,
Present.
Milne,
Present.
Roach,
Present.
Serrano,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Barajas,
Present.
and Mayor Martinez.
Thank you, and I'm here. So thank you once again, council, and apologize for the delay in the meeting. However, we got to maintain our requirements and ensure that we're keeping things safe for the public coming into our meetings. So we are now back to where we were prior to opening up the meetings to the public, where we have less than 5 people in our council chambers, and everybody's social distancing from here and keeping our sanitizers and everything sanitized to the best we can. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and continue. We were on item number 4 of our agenda. So this is the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by a roll call vote as one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If further discussion is desired by council members or the public, the item may be removed from the consent agenda to the regular agenda and considered separately. The first on the consent agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes. To approve the minutes of the Pasco City Council meeting held on March 1st, 2021, and the workshop held on March 8th, 2021. Next on the agenda, on the consent agenda, is to approve claims in the total amount of $4,495,223.82, and to approve bad debt write-off for utility billing, ambulance, cemetery, general accounts, miscellaneous accounts, and
$495,000.
was that just an echo, Mr. Funfar? So I will continue on this one item on the consent agenda. It's item B, and that is to approve bad debt write-off for utility billing, ambulance, cemetery, general accounts, miscellaneous accounts, and municipal court, non-criminal, criminal, and parking accounts receivable in the total amount of $128,207.23, and of that amount, authorize 0 to be turned over for collections. Item C of the consent agenda is to adopt ordinance number 4519, amending the 2021-2022 biennial operations budget of the city of Pasco, Washington, by providing supplement thereto by appropriating revenue received in excess of estimated revenues for the current year, and by providing transfers and adjustment authority and further authorized publication by summary only. Item D is to adopt ordinance number 4520, amending Title 23 of the Pasco Municipal Code, Section 23.35.070, appeals, and further authorized publication by summary only. And that is the extent of our consent agenda. If there's no comment by council, I would like to entertain a motion.
Absolutely, Mayor. I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
There's been a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
This is Alvarado, I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Alvarado. So can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Serrano,
Yes.
Alvarado,
Yes.
Maloney,
Yes.
Milne,
Yes.
Roach,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barajas,
Yes.
and Mayor Martinez.
Yes. Okay, the passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Number 5 on the agenda, proclamations and acknowledgements, none listed. And tonight, we have nobody, there would have been a section open for visitors other than agenda items for tonight, but due to the closure to the public, we will skip this section. Unless there's, we'll skip this section. And I guess I'll confirm that there's nobody on virtually that is prepared to say anything. Okay, doesn't appear that there is. Item number 7, reports from committees and or officers. Anybody from the council would like to report a meeting or anything they did last week?
This is Councilmember Alvarado.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
much of an event I attended, but for about a couple years, I was the chair for Benton Franklin Walla Walla Good Roads Association. And I did step down as chair just to be able to balance life a little bit more. But I would be happy to report that we have created a priorities list for sending to the legislature. And we included a few Pasco projects in there, with one of them being in the top 5. One of the things that I would report is that we changed in our approach of how we select projects to put on our priority list for the organization. It really is a lot more taking into account our metropolitan planning organizations. And so that was, I would say, one of the things that I was able to accomplish in that committee, to really be able to have a little bit more of a vetted list of projects rather than perhaps something that was a little bit more arbitrary. So I just wanted to report that to council. If you have any questions, do feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Councilmember Alvarado. Appreciate it. Anyone else?
This is Councilmember Maloney.
Yes, Councilmember Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to report on attending, actually with you, on the HAPO Center Advisory Board. We got a little download as to how they've been doing over the last year through COVID. The picture was not quite as grim as I feared it would be. They were able to cut expenses commensurate with their cuts to revenue. So all said and done, it's balancing out the additional subsidy required by that facility. There is still one, but it's about in line with I think the previous year. So we're not seeing so even though the revenue fell precipitously, obviously we saw that he was able to control it. We were able to control the expenses. So that facility will still be a little bit of a trouble as we look through how to renovate, a facility that's starting to age and it's going to need some major updates and upgrades. But things are better than they used to be. So I guess I just wanted to report that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Maloney. And I'll just tag on to that. Both of us attended that meeting, and it's just like many other businesses and other facilities throughout the Tri-Cities. The folks running that HAPO Center had to make a lot of adjustments, and one of the biggest expenses is labor cost, and some adjustments had to be made, and I believe they did a good job, and it seems like as the Councilmember Maloney indicated, it wasn't as grim as we thought it was going to be, but there is a lot of work to be done. And on a positive note, I mean, they're there, they're working, they're ready for booking. And there's a lot of excitement in the air to get things going. It just depends on where we're at as a community and what we can do due to the pandemic. So yeah, it was a good meeting, and I appreciate Councilmember Maloney joining us for that one. So thank you. Anybody else? All right, then we'll move along to item 8, hearings and council actions on ordinances and resolutions relating thereto, none listed, and ordinances and resolutions not relating to hearings. And first, we have a resolution professional services agreement with the TCA, Inc. for agricultural and engineering services for the fire department facilities. Chief Gear, are you on the line tonight?
Yes, sir, I am. If you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And, well...
Yes. We're going about this a little bit differently than what we have in the past. In the past, when we solicited professional services agreements with architects and engineers, we knew specifically what fire station projects we were going to go after. We really don't know right now. We just anticipate over the next few years there's going to be potentially some projects surface, especially as we look at some of the relief funding that's going to be allocated to critical infrastructure. There may be some opportunity for shovel-ready projects. So what we're proposing is that we sign a professional services agreement with TCA Architects, which we're the same firm that designed Station 83 and Station 84. Potentially the first project that will come up is Station 85, which would be on Road 100, and utilizing a very similar design, or almost hopefully as much identical as we can to the current Station 83. Given that there's been some significant changes in the building code that was adopted here last July, if council might remember, which is going to have some impacts. And there are some civil issues associated with the Station 85 site that kind of drive costs up a little bit. The current statement of work and the preliminary cost estimate from TCA Architectures is very similar to what we paid or what we contracted for 2 years ago for Station 83. So I think given the change in building codes and the significant increases in civil costs that we may see associated with that site due to street widening and some underground powering issues, I think their preliminary costing is very appropriate, especially reusing the existing Station 83 design. So with that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Chief Gear. Is there anybody on the council that has any questions for Chief Gear? If not, then we can entertain a motion. Mayor Pro Tem Barajas?
Absolutely, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 4042, authorizing the city manager to sign and execute a professional services agreement with Architecture Planning Incorporated PS for architecture and engineering services for future fires.
Okay, there's a motion to approve resolution number 4042. Do I hear a second?
It's Councilor Maloney. I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Maloney. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. All right, next we'll go to an ordinance, Sawyers rezone from RS 12 to RS 1. And we have Director White. You want to?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. And this ordinance 4517, was adopted for this rezone in February, just a little over a month ago. Unfortunately, it contains a staff error in the legal description with an incorrect range number that the agenda report describes accurately. We could not correct this through the Scrivener's error process because it involved a site-specific rezone. So with council's indulgence, the current proposed ordinance corrects the error, and the zone change will, of course, be as council approved back on February 1st.
Thank you, Director White. Any questions or comments for Mr. White? If not, then Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to entertain the motion?
Absolutely, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4521, correcting the legal description of ordinance number 4517, and further authorize publication by summary only.
So there's a motion on the floor to adopt ordinance number 4521, correcting the legal description of ordinance number 4517, and further authorize publication by summary only. Do I hear a second?
This is Councilmember Roach, and I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Roach. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have a resolution for a purchase and sale agreement on Road 76 Kelly property. Director Ratkai, are you on the line tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I am. Thank you. And yeah, essentially we've got a PSA for property off of Road 76. From time to time, the city of Pasco seeks strategic, I think my camera blipped out there, excuse me. City of Pasco seeks strategic land purchases for various infrastructure projects, future park projects, public projects. And this property came up for sale. And in order to allocate future provision of sanitary sewer infrastructure to serve residents in this area of the city, Public Works staff determined that this property is ideally located for the future placement of a lift station. While you see it is 3.6 acres, it's anticipated the city will only utilize a small portion of the property. Subsequent use of the land, which could be including development, will be determined at a later date. This property is specifically located at 2220 Road 76. It's 3.6 acres, and the purchase price is approximately $385,000. This property was discussed with City Council during an executive session taking place on February 8th, 2021, resulting in staff receiving concurrence from the City Council to move forward with the purchase of the property. So a pretty cut and dry purchase and sale agreement. I'm here to take any questions of council at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Ratke. Appreciate it. Any questions or comments from the council?
This is Councilmember Roach, and just curious, does this abut the irrigation canal?
This abuts, from the map that I have here, this abuts land that was part of the flood control conveyance back from the 40s and 50s. So it's part of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineered land, but it's not specifically allocated to the irrigation district or the canal.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Roach. If there's no further questions, Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to entertain the motion?
Absolutely. I move to approve resolution number 4043, authorizing the purchase of 3.6 acres of land located at 2220 Road 76, and further authorize the city manager to execute the purchase sale agreement with Blue Gem Farms.
All right, so there's a motion to approve resolution number 4043, authorizing the purchase of 3.6 acres of land located at 2220 Road 76. Do I hear a second?
This is Councilmember Milne. I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Milne. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we go to a resolution for Ecology Water Quality Combined Financial Assistance Agreement with the wastewater treatment plant design. And do we have Sarah on the line tonight, or Mr. Are you on the line, Maria?
I am. Good evening,
There you are.
Mayor, council members. I am bringing to you tonight an agreement for a low-interest loan awarded to the city by Department of Ecology for the design activities for wastewater treatment plant Phase 1 and Phase 2. This is $4.9 million at 1.2% interest rate to be repaid in 20 years. The design of wastewater treatment plant Phase 1 project has already begun and actually been completed, and this loan will help cover those costs as incurred in 2020 and will be funding additional funding that would help us cover the costs for the design of Phase 2. With that, you are seeing a draft agreement that Ecology has prepared for our project. We don't expect major changes. It is in our best interest to receive authorization from council to be ready to execute this contract as soon as the final version becomes available. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Maria. Appreciate it. One of these things that are well thought out, and a lot of work went into this, and appreciate, this is part of growth in the city of Pasco, and this is what we do. So is there any questions or comments from the council for Maria? If not, Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to entertain the motion?
Just a second, Mayor. I lost my place in my notes. Here we are. I move to approve resolution number 4044, authorizing the city manager to sign and execute the Water Quality Combined Financial Assistance Agreement with the Department of Ecology for the design of wastewater treatment plant improvements project Phase 1 and 2.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve approve resolution number 4044. Do I hear a second?
This is Serrano. I'll second that.
What was that? Who was that
This
again?
is Councilman Serrano.
Oh, there you
I
go.
will second that.
Thank you, Mr. Serrano. I apologize, it didn't come in very well. So that's seconded by Councilmember Serrano. If there's no further questions on this motion, then all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we'll go to a resolution to revised interlocal agreement with Columbia Basin College for Argent Road Improvements Project. And again, we have Maria on the line tonight for that.
Good evening again. This interlocal agreement was actually in its original form presented to council in 2019. The agreement was never fully executed, and upon review of the agreement, we realized that we inadvertently left out two easements that were required for the project to take place, and that is a permanent utility easement on the south side of Argent Road and a temporary construction easement that will allow for the construction activity to actually happen. Those are the only changes to the agreement from the previous version that you had seen, and our intention is, if it were to be approved tonight, to have it fully executed and move the project forward into construction after this agreement is reviewed by the Department of Transportation and we obtain our certification of the right-of-way phase. With that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Maria. Any questions for Maria on this topic? Well, we're looking forward, I'm certainly looking forward to having that work done on Argent Road there. So, Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to entertain the motion?
Absolutely, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 4046, authorizing the city manager to sign and execute the interlocal agreement for the purpose of financially supporting and conveying right-of-way for Argent Road Project number 12001 with Columbia Basin College, and further authorize the city manager to make minor revisions to the agreement prior to executing it with Columbia Basin College.
So there's a motion to approve resolution number 4046. Do I hear a second?
This is Councilmember Roach, and I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Roach. So if there's no further discussion on this topic, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. All right, so that gets us through section 9 of the agenda. Now we'll move on to 10, where it's unfinished business, and I don't see any listed. And 11 is new business, none listed, and we'll move right along to miscellaneous discussion. And Assistant
Lincoln.
City Manager Lincoln, would you like to kick us off with that?
Sure, thanks, Mayor. I've got a couple items tonight. First, want to remind the City Council that on Friday, this Friday, the 19th at 2 p.m., we'll be doing the Peanuts Park groundbreaking, which is, I think, pretty exciting considering it's been a big topic of discussion for some time and will really change the face of our downtown. So I think that's quite a big achievement to get to this point to do the groundbreaking. So we're excited for that. Next, I wanted to give Fire Chief Gear the chance to give us an update on the vaccine and test sites if he's still on the line.
I am, Mr. Lincoln. Thank you. So at the test site, actually, I was excited to see today when I saw the SIT report for last week that we were under 10% positivity. So that's the first time we've been under 10% since the site opened. We have considerably downsized, probably cut the site staffing in half since the testing numbers are down. Although today they did probably 360, I think it was, but Mondays are always the busiest day. But we have downsized that site, and we are happy to see the positivity going down. Although, and then with the test site, I just received an email a little bit ago from Franklin Health to talk about maybe going mobile with that test site. So we're going to meet on that and have some discussion about how to do that. On the vaccination site, what's really surprising is the numbers are way down for this week for people signing up. And I don't know if it's confusion about reading all the different levels of phases that we seem to be moving through and how they get accelerated. We're trying to get out some media information on that and get our registrations up. One of the real concerns is if our numbers go down, the amount of vaccines allocated to us in the following week will be reduced. So we're going to have to get some public information out on that over the next few days. We open up again tomorrow, Tuesday through Saturday, and we had quite a few spots available, well over 5,000 appointments available, and they just don't seem to be filling up. Even though we've tried to work with teachers, we are working with Energy Northwest to get many of their employees through before they go to the shutdown. We met with them last week, and then we're trying to get the message out to both ag and food processing people or agencies and farmers to get appointments set up for their people. So that's kind of the update on the vaccination site. If there's any questions.
This is Councilmember Roach, and I have a question for you, Chief. Is there knowledge or is there information about how many vaccines are taking place in the area besides the site, at the hospitals, clinics, pharmacies? Because, you know, I saw at Tri-City Community Health, there was a line of people there, and they're giving out the Johnson & Johnson shot. And so just curious if that is adding competition to the mass vaccine site.
You know, we've been trying to get some good data on that, but you know, I get your question 100%. It's kind of out of my wheelhouse to look at those other places, but I think what we're pushing back to State Department of Health to push the governor is we need to open up more eligibility to vaccines across the board, because we do have, you know, we don't have a lot of vaccines, but obviously we have some available that could go to more people than are currently allowed in the phase. So, you know, there's a good number of vaccines that are going on every day. And the Johnson & Johnson is a real popular one because it's the one and done. So if people can get into that, they're trying to go for that versus a Pfizer or Moderna, which is a two-section vaccine. So I can't answer the question 100%, but we're trying to figure that out. Are we at a saturation in the current phases, and will Department of Health open up additional phases? I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the best intel I have tonight.
That's okay, and I don't have an expectation that you know about all those other places, but I was curious just myself because I know that the pharmacies and other clinics are giving out shots, and even maybe some places of employment, and so I was thinking about that. But I fully support what you just said, that idea of pressing and pushing for eligibility for all groups of people, because I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say, I'm just waiting for my phase. I'm because they don't qualify just yet, but they'd like to go get the shot. And if they could go get it today, they would get it today. But they aren't in the correct phase yet. So I guess let's push for that then.
The phases are confusing. And if you read the federal phases, they're different than what Washington DOH has adopted. So I understand how people are confused about whether they're supposed to be registering or not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Roach. Chief Gear, I have a question. We kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but could you give us a little bit of insight on how we're communicating to different demographics, and for those people who find it hard to find transportation to go to the vaccination site? Is there anything you can tell us about how we can, what opportunities there are to get these people to the vaccination site? And also, we had this discussion earlier about calling 211, but there's a specific number that I'd like to make sure everybody knows about, and I don't have it with me. Do you have that number with you?
Darn it, no.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, where can they get
I
it,
don't-
Chief Gear?
I'll make sure we get it out some more for you tomorrow, Mayor. And you pointed that out to me last week, and I didn't know that. I thought you just dialed 211, and because we'd allocated a certain number of appointments to the 211, I didn't realize you had to go to a different number until you pointed it out. Getting the message out, again, the eligibility question is a real tough one, but I'll talk about what we're doing. So last week, Pasco Fire, actually, we worked with Captain Michelle Crowley, our medical services officer, was the lead on working with Benton Franklin Health to do homebound, what we call homebound individuals. It truly had to be vetted by one of the social service agencies, Meals on Wheels, Aging and Long-Term Care, to identify truly homebound individuals and pass those individual names on to us so that we could make appointments with them. As of today, we've done 17 homebound individuals in the city of Pasco with Johnson & Johnson vaccines. We were allocated 200 syringes or 200 doses of Johnson & Johnson by the state to Benton Franklin Health to do those homebound individuals. And Captain Crowley and some other individuals in the department have been going out over the last few days, last week and today, and taking care of the individuals we had identified by the social service agencies and their healthcare providers if they made appointments early on. I think it's a great program. I don't know if any of the council members saw it on the news tonight, but you know, it's important. We have to get vaccines to everybody that we can, and especially the most vulnerable. And that's a good example of that. So we're working with that. We had a meeting last week with Benton Franklin Health to talk a lot about what do we do with the egg community and the food processors. And originally, Benton Franklin Health had intended for those agencies, or for Benton Franklin Health to contract with a private provider to go to those agencies. That's since fallen through. So we're trying to determine the best way to get those food processors and egg housing sites into the center without taking out a bunch of their workforce at one time. You can't, and that's what actually was, and also a pushback that came from the food processors that said, we don't want a pop-up site at our building that does everybody here, and then the next day half of the staff is homesick. So we need different delivery models. So we're trying to work that through with the food processors and get them through the site in some manner that doesn't take out a bunch of their workforce.
Mr. Chief Gear, I appreciate that information, and the reason I mentioned this because it's very important. On March 22nd, you know, everybody goes to phase 3, and then the metrics go to a county-wide count, and we have to meet the numbers as a county. And you know, I'm very excited to hear that we're under the 10% positivity rate. That's a big push forward. And we just need to make sure we do our part to continue to stay and reduce our numbers so that we can continue to move forward as we're allowed to. I want to provide this number. I just got informed there's a COVID hotline, and I don't expect everybody to have pens and paper, but maybe Mr. Funfar can confirm and put this on our website if possible. There's a 1-800-525-0127. That's the COVID hotline number. That's the number to call to get assistance, to get help, to get vaccinated. So just wanted to share that, and I appreciate everything you're doing there, Chief Gear. Yes.
One other item, I guess, in light of our disruption that occurred earlier this evening, want to remind Mayor and Council that the emergency order that allowed us to have our in-person meetings included language that you may have the meetings in person. So I guess I'd see if the council wanted to have a conversation about changing that or delaying having an in-person meeting for a little while until we have further further information from the state regarding masks and in-person meetings. So I'd entertain a conversation if you'd be so kind, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lincoln, and thank you. Yes, I think it's important that we as a council discuss this. Does anybody have any questions or comments about moving forward? Do we want to continue to come in and open it to the public and have individuals come in and having us, go home and do it virtually? What is your thought, council, on steps forward? Should we go to virtual meetings for now? It's up to you guys. I'd like to have it open and you guys provide comments.
Is Councilmember Alvarado?
Yes, Mr. Alvarado, go ahead.
I'm not sure if this is the right option, and this is just off the top of my head, so perhaps it might be good for, perhaps have our council look at this, but, this is a meeting of council. Public has the ability to comment and, bring grievances and things of that nature, but ultimately it is a meeting of council. And so I'm wondering if perhaps having the public comment portion still continue to be online. I don't know if we've looked at that option. While the council will be able to meet kind of in an enclosed room.
It's a good question, council member. Our understanding of the way that the rules are written is that you have to have parity for in-person and online. So if you're going to have an in-person portion of the meeting, you'd have to allow for public comment both online and in person.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Councilmember Alvarado. Anybody else with any suggestions?
This is Councilor Maloney.
Yes, Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, I'm glad this was brought up because I was going to bring it up if not. And, I was just really disappointed that we had to have the disruption and that people weren't willing to comply with the rules, unfortunately. I guess where I'm at is I'm willing to give this another week. And if we end up being disrupted again next week, I fear that we're going to have to return to virtual meetings where the city business must be done. There's a virtual meeting, the virtual option for people to not wear a mask and be able to call in or video in and have a conversation with us. Obviously, we're happy to receive written testimony if people want to. There's lots of different ways for people to get a hold of us. I'd like there to be an in-person option as well for people who are not comfortable with the other options. But unfortunately, if people are unwilling to comply, I just don't see any way to keep doing this and take an extra half an hour during our meetings just delay because two people who are just not willing to follow the rules for near as I can tell the sole purpose of disrupting the meeting. It's just unfortunate. It's not what I want, and I'm just really disappointed. So I'm hoping that we can try again next week, and if next week works out, then maybe we can keep it up. But if this happens more, I guess we're just back to where we were, unfortunately. Almost as if the governor, if we hadn't moved phases, if we hadn't moved forward, and that just sucks. I really like seeing y'all, and I really like working there in the same room, and just being able to, those just even minor interactions are just so impactful, and having people out there in the audience so I can see a face when we're talking about this deeply important business. I would really regret having to move back, but we'll do what we have to. So anyways, that's my recommendation. Wait a week and go back to virtual if we can't do this without disruption. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Maloney.
Councilmember, I would just add, I think that given it's a work session next week, I wouldn't necessarily expect that the two gentlemen would come next week, but I would expect them to continue to come the following week. And that's what they've been indicating, is that for meetings where there's an opportunity for public comment, those are the meetings that they're trying to be in person for.
So to clarify that, they've already announced their intention to be back in 2 weeks and disrupt our meeting?
That's my understanding from what staff shared with me during the break.
Well, if that's the case, then we already know ahead of time, then I guess that unfortunately makes the decision clear. I don't think we can every 2 weeks disrupt like this if we know that the people are not going to comply and we haven't moved on to a spot where that behavior is acceptable. So I guess that's where I'm standing. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember.
This is Mayor Pro Tem Barajas.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Barajas, go ahead.
Just real quick, I'm of the same sentiment as Councilmember Maloney. I too was gonna say maybe we give another try in the following week, but if they've already expressed an intent, then unfortunately, as much as I would like to be there, I think we should go back to virtual until guidelines change to where it allows for people to actually be in person. Again, same sentiment as Councilmember Maloney. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Barajas.
Okay, this is Councilman Milne. I had a quick question. I know sometimes when you go into a store, say, for instance, like Costco, if you do not wear your mask, they kick you out. Do the rules apply different from like the city government versus a business? Because I know it just seems if you don't do it in Costco, you are kicked out, no questions asked. What's your take on that?
Councilmember, I think that's more of a question of policy for how we would handle that disruption. I think there is, given guidance from council, we can certainly ask people to be removed from a meeting. My understanding and I guess our approach was a little more, as we eased back into in-person to handle it through more of a talk with the folks that are trying to disrupt the meeting, but that is an option that we can explore. I think there are certain ramifications of putting police officers in a position to remove people, and I think our attorney, if he's on the line, may have some opinions to flesh out with this as well, just with what we're allowed to, how we're allowed to remove people from the building and under what rules we're allowed to do that. So I don't know if is Craig or Eric on the line?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, generally speaking, the rules are that, obviously a private establishment, you don't have a constitutional right to go to Costco. They can refuse service. They're a private business. They have a little different rules than we have. Although this is, the council meeting is, while it is a public forum, there are restrictions that you can place on that. That's one of the ways that even in normal times we can have folks that would be disturbing the meeting. We can have them removed so that the meeting can go on. That's generally speaking how one of the restrictions that are on folks who want to attend meetings and maybe disrupt them. But then now that we have COVID kind of overlaid over our situation here, we do have obviously a governor's proclamation, which would give us a little more leeway to be able to handle that. We have a little more freedom to handle that situation because we are able to rely on the governor's proclamation for public health and safety. So essentially that helps give us a little more flexibility in terms of how much we would maybe want to enforce something without somebody who's I guess what I'm trying to say is that it lowers the bar for disturbing the meeting. You don't have to prevent the meeting from moving forward. Mere attendance without the mask could comply with that. So that's certainly an option. It's a risk reward scenario, obviously, as anything is with the law. Anytime you take on those risks, you can find yourself in a situation where you then may have to deal with that, the long-term consequences of defending those actions. So, yeah, but there's certainly plenty of leeway there.
Okay, thanks. I'm not advocating. It just seems kind of odd that, it says mask required to enter the city hall, and then these people decide not to, and I just want to do my job efficiently. So it just gets frustrating to come all this way and then have to go home. So I'm just want to know what options. So I do appreciate the clarification on that. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This is Councilmember Roach, and I just want to say that, I feel strongly that I'm there and physically present to do the public's business, and I want that to be the case because I can just see from a year's worth of having virtual meetings that there is a lot of technology issues and not knowing when it's the right time to speak when you can't read body language or facial expressions. And so you know, the fluidity of our meeting is so much better in person, and I would prefer that. However, having folks there who want to protest wearing a mask or whatever, you know, protest the governor's orders, the difficulty is that, to me, from my perspective, it's clear that as city council members and in local government, we're having to adhere to that mandate. And so the disruption ends up delaying the work that we have to do. And then we have to go back to this format that is really, that's more challenging. And so it's not my preference to do this, but if that's the case, that we're going to continue to have folks come in and not mask up, and we have to go to recess, and then we have to drive back home, and it delays the public's business, then I would say, do the virtual, unfortunately, until our masking policy is relaxed. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Councilmember Roach.
I'll give it my thoughts here. I think we've got a multi-layered question here. Certainly sounds like there's a general consensus that for workshop meeting where we don't anticipate compliance issues, we ought to meet in public, obviously risking that we could be delayed. When it comes to actual business meetings, that's, I think, where the risk comes in. And I'm of the opinion that I'm willing to give it, kind of as Councilman Maloney said, before we heard kind of the thoughts, one more shot on an actual meeting, a regular meeting. So it'd be a couple weeks out from now, to see where we are as to whether we can actually conduct the public business without disruption. I think I've made my opinion clear and my thoughts clear on many of these underlying issues. Nonetheless, we are public servants, and we've got to look out for the good of the whole. That being the case, in the event that we cannot conduct the business without maintaining compliance, we discussed this at length last week. We came to the conclusion that we were going to continually try to maintain open insofar as everyone could abide by the same rules that the rest of the state has, whether we like it or not. That's where we are. And again, I guess my take is for workshop meetings, if we have no planned individuals, then absolutely we meet in person. For the next regular meeting, I think it's worth taking a shot. Quite frankly, as someone who's wanted to not close any meeting down, and I think we've all been there, but I've advocated that to the governor. I'm not willing to come back and delay the meeting for another half hour every other week. That's just not fair to the general public, and that's who we're here to represent. If individuals want to take umbrage with that, there's certainly recourse through the court system, possibly through some of the gubernatorial committees, and they can, allege their standing.